let's head to the page where service fault error codes are dealt with, and that is pages 6 and 7. Here we go. That's page 7. So according to this service manual, it means there is a basket speed fault. The main control cannot determine the speed of the basket. The basket turns, and as it turns, the main processor cannot calculate how fast or how slow the basket is turning. Alright, what do they want us to do? By the way, in case you wondered why I have highlighted some of these lines and I left the rest alone, is just to indicate sentences that are on my service manual, okay? Everything else that I did not highlight are not part of my service manual. So first step is to see if your rotor is locked. What they basically are saying is your rotor is locked if you cannot turn the basket or the impeller, which you can, by the way, just open the lid and physically try to turn the basket or the impeller. So if you can do those things, then the motor is not seized. Of course, in my particular case, I even went as far as doing manual testing of the spinning functions and the agitation functions, which means that as far as my motor is concerned, I have no issue whatsoever. Okay, that's what it is. Moving on to the next one. Now what they think is maybe your connections are bad, okay? But as far as I'm concerned, that's not an issue for me either, because I've had my watch for about 7 years and the thing has been sitting in a corner in a basement for the past 7 years. I've never worked on it. I've never had anybody work on it. So my connections should be fine. So I conveniently skip that too. So what they wanted me to do now is to do a test, okay? They say it's on page 13. There you have it, test 3A. It's part of the drive system. So the plan is to check for connections and the shifter motor and the switch and of course the optical sensor, which are all part of the actuator and the gear shifting mechanism. For that purpose, they want us to refer to figure 4, which is the schematics, which I will probably use sometimes if we need to. And then number 1, functional check, okay? They want us to check the shifter and electrical connections by performing both the spin and agitation test under manual test mode on page 9. Okay, so basically what they want us to do is to manually test the spinning function and the agitation functions on the washing machine separately, one at a time. Okay, now if we succeed to do that, then we know not only that the spinning function is okay, that the agitation function is okay, but the switching function is okay. Okay, if you remember in one of my past videos, I did that. Here you go. That's the high spin test. And press this, the machine will now be in the heavy agitation mode, alright? Which means that I have passed this test. But if you have passed these tests, then you cannot go on to the next series of steps, because right here it says in order to move forward, one or all of the preceding tests must have failed. Okay, so here is my dilemma. I did not have any spinning issues, I did not have any agitation issues, and therefore I did not have any switching issues. So here's a document that says to move forward you must have had any one or all of those preceding tests fail. So that is where I stopped, okay, because what this told me is there is a whole set of problems that are not covered by this service manual. Okay, I am left to my own devices at this point because I cannot go forward. All right, what you're looking at is page 7 of the service manual. We're dealing with our error code number 2, which is F7E7, and that means the motor is unable to reach target RPM. Okay, so what it says here is the fault is displayed when the basket speed sensor detects target RPM was not reached. Alright, there are two words that jump out at you, okay? Target RPM. Now, I'm not familiar with the code for washing machines, but it's conceivable that for a given load of clothes that you have in the basket, the processor does its thing and determines, okay, I've got this much clothes in the basket. To get the water out of the clothes, I have to spin the basket, say for 200 revolutions per minute. That's RPM for 2 minutes. Okay, so the processor tells the motor to start spinning. In the meantime, what the processor does is it keeps an eye on how fast the basket is turning, because it has a speed sensor in the actuator, right? So it keeps turning the basket, it's monitoring to see if the basket has arrived at 200 revolutions per minute. But for God knows why, the processor does not see the basket getting to 200 revolutions per minute, okay? Maybe you have a bad sensor, okay? Maybe there is a cable that is broken, so the actual speed of the basket will never get to the processor, all right? So the processor, maybe usually it waits like for 10 seconds for the basket to get to 200 revolutions per minute. And that's not happening today. So what does the processor do? Usually the motor gets there 10 seconds later. Today it's not getting there. I've gone past 10 seconds. There must be something wrong with this machine. I'm gonna have to call it out. So processor decides something is going wrong or has gone wrong with this machine. I'm gonna have to stop spinning. It will stop spinning. It will generate an error code, the F7 E7 that is, and saves it in the memory of the machine. Okay, that is basically what is going on behind the scenes, the way I look at it. What do they want us to do? Their first step is maybe there is something physical, okay, obstructing the smooth spinning of the basket. So what do they suggest? They want you to remove the basket from the tub and see if there is anything physical. I did, by the way. It's not a very difficult process to do. I did not find anything big enough to obstruct the basket from spinning. So obviously that wasn't the reason for the breakdown of my machine. Then next to that, they think maybe your motor is weak, or maybe your capacitor is weak. Maybe the capacitor is not even connected to the motor. Obviously that's not my case, okay? I've done a lot of manual testing on spinning and agitation, and my machine did very well, okay? So that's not my problem too. So the third one is maybe you have like an unbalanced load distribution in the basket, okay? Sometimes this is conceivable, all right? You might have a lot of closing on one side of the basket as opposed to the other side, causing the machine to kind of wobble and generate this problem. But this can happen once, right? It's not gonna happen 10 times in a row, which was not the case for my machine anyway. So the last one, they want us to do a motor test on page 14. All right, so let's head to page 14 and see what we can find. All right, here we go. Test 3B drive system motor. What do they want us to do? They want us to check the motor windings, the wiring, and the start capacitor. There is a figure 5 to refer to if we need to, but I don't think we're gonna go that far, all right? Basically, they want us to do agitation testing and spinning testing manually. Okay, under manual testing we have done all these, okay, so my machine did not fail. Similar to our first error code F7E1, they don't want us to go forward unless any one of these tests failed. So that's where I got stuck, okay? So basically what I did here was I just sat down and thought about what possibly could have caused my machine to break down, because this manual here, you know, was not usable at this point. All right.